So if you're in sales and you're confused about whether or not you should use pressure in a sales call and how you should do that, if you should do that, then watch this video because this is going to be the video where I explain about all the ins and outs of pressure. So generally speaking, when you start a sales call, you don't want to use pressure at all because you want to make the person feel welcome. You want to build comfort, want to build rapport, and you want to have like a good vibe with the person, with the prospect that you're speaking to. So that's super important. Don't use pressure at the start. When you do agenda setting, you could say, it's okay to use like a little bit of pressure in terms of like setting the expectations. But generally speaking, you just want to make your prospect feel welcome and be kind of like a friend. You don't necessarily need to be exactly like a friend, but you need to resemble a friend, and in a good way, of course. And so, when do you really need to use pressure? It's whenever the prospect has certain beliefs that's like really strong for him in his mind that are actually damaging for him. That's like one of the main reasons where you need to use pressure, or at least you need to start asking questions to unravel what he believes and start planting seeds of doubt in his mind. You don't want to do this as a way of manipulating in an evil way, but you do want, this is a tactic you can use to influence and to make him think just about what he believes and what he's doing and his actions and maybe the things that are going on in his business. So planting these seeds of doubt, that's not necessarily something you would say. That doesn't take a lot of pressure. And you're right, it doesn't. But it still takes like a little bit to ask that. For example, let's say your prospect is clearly exaggerating the amount of money he makes, or he's very wishy-washy about his revenue and things like that. Then you might want to ask the question like, what is the revenue you made this quarter? And what is the revenue you made last quarter? So that's something that you can use to force him a little bit to the truth. So that's why you want to use the pressure, right? Because you want to force a good outcome. So there's nothing wrong with that per se. It's just that you need to keep in mind there is what you do and your beliefs. And in your mind, you might be, well, when I apply pressure now, I'm doing this for the good. I'm actually trying to help this person. And that might be really true from your perspective. But from the prospect's perspective, he might be really sensitive to pressure and he might see everyone who tries to use pressure on him as like an evil person. So, some prospects will be like that. Then there will be other prospects. For example, if you're doing a lot of sales to salespeople, then you will have a lot of prospects that are more okay with pressure used in a good way. And this is what I recently read in Zig Ziglar. Zig Ziglar said, it's okay to use pressure in a sales call, but you need to see how you go about it and also how the prospect feels about it. Some prospects feel very strange about it, and then you need to kind of sort of get their permission to use pressure to kind of call out and get rid of their tumor. For some prospects, you will need to get permission for that. Otherwise, they might feel too strange with it, or they might not accept it. Other people might be more okay with it. So it really depends on who is in front of you. But like I would say, it's always fine to use pressure. You just have to see how you apply it, why you apply it, and when you apply it. That's really uh, that's really the thing, right? Because the truth is always in the nuances. So it's not that you have to use pressure, or it's not that you have to avoid pressure. Like, it's always, how do you go about it? Why do you use it? What are you trying to achieve with it? Like, those are always the questions that matter. And the more you practice that in your sales conversations, the more you will find good ways to use pressure. And like, for me, I was someone who is always coming from a more frame that I believe in intensity, and I believe in benevolent aggression. That's my perspective, or at least it's one of my perspectives. But then you also need to understand the side that you don't want to take that too far, because the reality is you don't always need pressure either, right? In fact, some prospects and some situations are better solved when you are a little bit more soothing, when you are a little bit more genuine, and well, you always need to be genuine, more or less. But my point is, some situations will call for more emotional support or things like that, and other situations will call for like a more of a confrontation, like setting boundaries and things like that. It really depends on who is in front of you and the situation you are in, and also a lot on what phase you are in the call, in the sales call. If you're closing, there's two moments when you most of the time need to use pressure. It's at the end of the discovery, when you are doing a very discovery heavy call, and then of course obviously also the objection handling. But the thing with that is you never want to use that from the perspective of, you need to do what I say, or you need to buy this because I want money, or because you should help me. That's not that's a very selfish motive, and that's not going to motivate the prospect to take action, because maybe he doesn't, rightfully he's probably doubting your integrity, right? So you always need to use pressure like in a benevolent way, and in order to like help the situation move forward, but in a good way. You want to help them achieve their goals and get to a better life. That's the thing that I want with sales at the end of the day. So that's the video. I know I'm rambling like a little bit, but I hope you enjoyed it, and check out my next video if you want. See you guys later. Bye bye.